press freedom. Press freedom, kayo yung number one magnanakaw, ayaw nyo sa uli yung propiedad, press freedom. You're bullshit. Mukha kayong pera. Kakapal ang mukha ninyo. Kayong taga-media. You know? You want to know my sentiments?
The
Fuck
Duterte government is setting a new normal in its antagonistic relationship with the Philippine media. Sa unang 22 buwan ng pagkakaupo ni Rodrigo Duterte, 4 na grupo ng media ang nag-ulat ng hindi bababa sa 85 mga kaso ng pag-atake at pagbabanta laban sa press.
Recorded the killing of 9 journalists, 16 libel cases, 14 cases of online harassment, 11 death threats, 6 slay attempts, 6 cases of harassment, 5 cases of intimidation, 4 cases of website attack, revoked registration or denied franchise renewal, verbal abuse, strafing, and police surveillance of journalists and media agencies.
First, to feel Duterte's anger, the newspaper with the largest circulation, the Philippine Daily Inquirer. In his first State of the Nation's address in 2016, Duterte denounces the Inquirer's Pieta-like front page photo of a victim of his war on drugs.
And you are portrayed in a broadsheet na parang Mother Mary cradling the dead cadaver of Jesus Christ. Ayan yung mga yan eh. Magdramahan tayo dito.
In March 2017, Duterte once again publicly rants against the newspaper over reports he insists are unfair.
Inquirer, you've never been fair. Bastos kayo. Pati ABS-CBN, bastos na.
Di kalaunan ay tinuon ni Duterte ang kanyang mga tirada sa mga may-ari ng Inquirer. Inaakusahan na ang pamilyang Prieto na sila ay may utang na bilyon na buwis sa gobyerno.
I don't know, but meron akong natanggap na balita na may binili ng lupa yan sa gobyerno, ang binayaran lang sweetheart deal dahil nga they went for Cory during kalaban nila sa Makati. It's an alley in Makati.
Di nagtagal, inihayag ng mga Prietos na ito ay nasa pag-uusap upang ibenta ang kanilang majority share sa Inquirer kay Ramon Ang, isang negosyante na kaibigan ng Pangulo. Duterte also puts his iron in the country's biggest TV network, ABS-CBN. In April 2017, President Duterte warns that he will block the renewal of ABS-CBN's franchise, which is set to expire in the year 2020.
Pati si marami pa yan. Inutso ninyo, utang ina harapan magkolekta kayo tapos istapa ninyo kami.
Duterte accuses the network of swindling, claiming that ABS-CBN did not show his political ads during the 2016 campaign season, even though these were already paid for.
Kailangan lang ng tapang at malasakit.
Duterte!
Rodrigo Roa Duterte, President of the Republic of the Philippines.
During his second State of the Nation's address in July 2017, Duterte echoes a popular yet false claim by his online defenders in which the traveler is fully owned by the Americans, a violation of the 1987 Constitution.
You are supposed to be 100% Filipino. And yet when you start to pierce their identity, it is pala fully owned by Americans.
Noong Enero ng 2018, inanunsyo ng Securities and Exchange Commission na binabawi nito ang lisensya na magpatakbo ng Rappler dahil sa umano'y paglabag sa konstitusyon at sa anti-dummy law. In one of his frequent rants, Duterte calls Rappler a fake news outlet and eventually bans Rappler from entering the palace and covering him in public places.
Rappler, your articles are ripe with innuendos and pregnant with falsity. But since you are a fake news outlet, then I am not surprised that your articles are also fake.
Di ba ako pwede pumasok?
Yeah, ganun.
Meron po akong MPC ID.
Hindi po ma'am yung
Ha?
yun ang sinabi.
Ako lang? Ako lang yung hindi pwedeng pumasok?
It doesn't stop there. Matapos ang desisyon ng SEC, maraming iba pang mga ahensya ng gobyerno ang sumunod na inaakusahan ang website ng libel at tax evasion. In April 2018, the Philippine government also bars journalists of the Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines from covering a press conference in Singapore.
The Filipino people, maraming salamat po.
Rodrigo Duterte is the first candidate to effectively harness social media to win the presidency. As early as July 2016, the same network that put him in power is weaponized, targeting journalists and anyone deemed critical of the president. All the newsroom attacks happen in this highly charged political climate, where state propaganda boosted by trolls and click farms systematically target dissent. By August 2016, key figures from the Duterte campaign popularized another term used in attacks: prostitutes, a wordplay of press and prostitute. Makikita sa graph na ito ang pagtaas ng paggamit sa salitang prostitute. Matapos maikalat ng mga Duterte supporters ang meme, Facebook posts of journalists and activists deemed critical of Duterte and his allies are also being mass reported. Facebook responds by taking down these posts. Cyber attacks are also used against news organizations. The website of Kadao Productions is hacked, while Verifiles is taken down by a distributed denial of service or DDoS attack, shortly after posting a story critical of Duterte. For reporting that the president likened himself to dictator Adolf Hitler, mugshots of the Reuters correspondents Manny Mogato and Karen Lema are spread on social media. Mogato's Facebook account is also hacked and defaced by still unidentified groups. The hackers changed his cover photo to that of a pro-Duterte Facebook page logo and celebrity pro-Duterte blogger Mocha Uson. In September 2017, trolls target veteran journalist Karen Davila after she makes a comment about the president's son, Paulo Duterte. The younger Duterte is implicated in the Bureau of Customs drug trafficking controversy. Sinasabi ng isang senador na ang tattoo nito ay patunay ng pagiging kasapi niya sa isang Chinese triad. Paulo's replies to Davila mocks of sexist innuendo na ipapakita niya dito ang kanyang tattoo sa kondisyong sila lamang dalawa sa isang hotel room. Female journalists are frequent targets of misogynistic attacks online for comments and critical reports that don't sit well with the president's supporters. Rappers Pia Ranada and Maria Ressa and Al Jazeera's Jamela Alindogan were often memed and insulted on social media. Veteran journalist Raisa Robles has been on the receiving end of attacks and harassment by pro-Duterte social media personalities and netizens since May 2016. Robles is a vocal critic of Duterte's war on drugs and his political party's plans to push for charter change. Since May 2016, social media personalities have been challenging Robles' credibility as a journalist. Inakusahan siya bilang isang propagandista para sa oposisyon at ang kanyang mga kwento ay naitag bilang fake news. Some posts and comments graphically wish for her death. Where reality comes up short, the propaganda machinery invents. Pro-Duterte pages also spread the meme that insinuates collusion between Ranada and Robles, because the latter is supposedly her mother-in-law, where Renata's husband carries the same name as Robles. Ang mga online attacks, pati na rin ang tirada ng Duterte administration laban sa media, ay napatunayan na epektibo na paninira sa mga mamamahayag at ang mga lehitimong issue na iniulat nila. Journalist organizations, international publications, legislators, and human rights groups here and abroad voice over concern over creeping media repression in the Philippines. The Philippines also slides 6 spots in the 2018 World Press Freedom Index by media watchdog Reporters Without Borders. Sa kabila ng lahat ng ito, iginiit ng Administrasyong Duterte ang demokrasya at ang press freedom ay buhay at maayos sa bansa.
Our record will stand for itself. We have taken steps po para pangalagaan ang buhay ng mga mamamahayag. Wala naman po tayong pinakukulong na mga mamamahayag. Ang presidente hindi nagdedemanda ng libel.
Tangina itong time kasi na to. Nilagay ako doon sa mga despot na hindi naman ako Ba't diktador ba ako? Since when? Since when did I send somebody to prison for just talking against me? Sige nga.
But the data tells a different story. Duterte single-handedly eroded public trust in the media. His administration weaponized the internet from a marketplace of ideas to a toxic environment of hate, misogyny, and intolerance. Ginagamit din nito ang kapangyarihang pampolitika nito upang takutin at pigilin ang press sa pamamagitan ng mga online attacks, legal harassment attempts, corporate takeovers, at banta ng pagsasara ng prangkisa. But despite the threats, journalists are standing their ground.
Ako si Jareden Labinya at walang taon na ako nagtatrabaho bilang broadcast journalist.
My name is Stephanie and I have been working as a freelance photojournalist for the past decade.
I am Kim Makabante. I am a multimedia journalist for 3 years as of today.
Why do you think journalism is important?
Kung walang journalism sa Pilipinas, news will travel very slowly. Kapag tumaas ang bilihin, they will not know unless pumunta sila sa bilihan. Kapag may paparating na bagyo, hindi makakapag-prepare ng maayos kasi hindi naman nila alam na may paparating na bagyo. News will still be there but it will travel very slow and it will be hard on deciding which is true or which is a hearsay.
It keeps people updated and aware kasi in journalism we cover everything under the sun. And we have different ways of sharing and imparting news to the public so that everyone can see it and they can be aware na ito pala yung nangyayari sa bansa or sa ibang bansa ngayon.
I think it is very important, especially now. Kailangan updated tayo sa nangyayari sa bansa para alam natin kung paano tayo kikilos. And nowadays, where fake news is rampant, journalism should be given more focus.
With all the issues na umiikot sa ating bansa, what are your thoughts on press freedom?
Para sa akin, kailangan na siyang i-introduce ulit sa tao kasi parang nakakalimutan na yung true essence niya.
I think it doesn't live up to its name kasi we're not certainly free, especially now. Puro red tagging nga eh. How can you say that we have press freedom if ganon?
Press freedom and threats to this freedom have become an issue of great concern. Can you share something you've heard, researched, or watched that shows subjection of press freedom?
Actually, I think I have something to share on how press freedom can be bent and sharpened easily. Bago yung World War II, yung press is controlled by two families who own newspaper chains. The Ross family, hindi sila supporter ng American government and they were often critical of the government under Manuel Quezon. The Elizabeths are the opposite. Mas friendly sila to the government as opposed to the Ross's author. Marami din nasasabi na may bias din since President Quezon was the former owner and publisher ng Herald. It goes to show na press freedom isn't actually free back then pa kasi if it can be easily be bent just because of the owner's views and ways, then how is it free, right?
Ito, I think everyone pretty much know already that after the declaration of martial law, all news organizations were closed. Ang print medias, radios, and television mediums. They can only operate unless the government tells so. All of the news that airs in mediums, minomonitor ng government. Common knowledge na journalists would be arrested and jailed.
There were a lot of times where press freedom is neglected in our country. Most recently is yung red tagging ng mga news organizations and journalists during the Duterte administration. Pero dati pa nagkakaroon na ng cases and government official with news organizations and reporters. There was President Aquino's case against Luis Beltran of Philippine Star and boycott calls of President Estrada laban sa Manila Times and Philippine Daily Inquirer.
Do you think press freedom is still expressed?
No.
Somehow.
I believe it's a case-to-case basis.
Since we've talked about the opinions and thoughts about press freedom, what do you think will be its future or the media under the new administration?
I think mawawala yung emphasis on media being credible source. Social media became more prominent as a source. Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, the likes. It's readily available nowadays and everyone uses them. If the elected president uses these platforms throughout the election, it's inevitable na magiging secondary or worse, primary source of information for Filipinos in the coming years.
Press freedom will most likely remain unchanged, but expect concern regarding information control to arise, as there is already a history of tension between the mass media and the next administration.
Why do you think is mass media crucial when it comes to imparting accurate information towards its audience?
As I've mentioned, social media platforms have become a medium of how information can be accessible to Filipinos. Readily accessible na ang social media, so madali na maghanap ng information and na-release yung awareness and knowledge ng mga Pinoy sa nangyayari sa bansa. It is in the perspective and manner of every journalist that searches and narrates for the truth and the influence of these different mass media platforms, where it implements and encourages critical thinking to every individual in order to examine facts and differ its case from an.
If you look at statistics, I've seen this article from PSA recently na yung functional literacy rate of Filipinos dahil sa exposure sa mass media ranges from 92.6% to 97.1%. With this in mind, we're able to analyze that mass media is solely and wholly responsible to impart its credibility of delivering the truth, as it is relevant that it could depict and represent a situation no matter how vile and pleasant it could be.
Can you discuss the role of media in Philippine society and the issues surrounding the abuses and corruption of media personalities and corporations?
Media isn't just one whole mass where news comes from. Meron iba't ibang type ng media. And each of them serve different purpose. At dahil isang primary source ng information and media, justifiable na naman na magkaroon ng problems and abuses. Whether it's a problem with media personalities or corporation or the government threatening press freedom, the Philippine media is not faultless. Recently lang, nakabilang ang Pilipinas sa most dangerous country for journalists, and we are ranked 7th. We have 13 unsolved media killings. There are 85 journalists murdered in the country between 1992 and 2021. I don't think the abuse is something that will disappear in a few years.
Because Philippines is a democratic society, the media plays an important role in providing information para mahusgahan ng mga tao ng maayos yung mga data na nakakalat nila and make sure it is a trustworthy source. The media is not attached to any government body. Information is restricted and information is more exposed to the public. The media acts as watchdogs, whether it's the government's lack of performance, corruption, an election, or the application of laws. The media could and should cover it neutrally. Kasi, dapat ang information walang bias dahil hindi lalabas ang totoong information if may pinapanigan sila ng isang side. And because of this, nagiging mainit ang mata ng gobyerno sa media. Recently lang natin naramdaman yung intensity na nangyari against the media, pero for me, it's always been there. We face many offenses against the media every year. Kidnappings, the Mindanao Massacre, persecution, misinformation, cyber label, journalists, even franchise rejection, reporters prevented from coverage, and so on. This demonstrates how personal interests of anonymous, particularly influential people, are suppressing press freedom in the country.
This might relate to the napakainit na issue when it comes to politics, especially here in the Philippines. How does the media affect the political consciousness of the Filipino people?
It easily can evolve into an us versus them mentality. Example na lang is during the election. During the campaign, there are candidates who pointed out the faults and flaws of the opposing candidates. And to those who saw this, there are people who were affected that resulted sa pag-aaway-away ng mga tao at nagsisiraan na sila. And just a simple video or post, the way na mag-isip ang mga tao ay naapektuhan. Which is a bad thing kasi masasabi rito na mabilis kang mauto.
The media in the democratic context poses a huge dilemma. There is a big chance that you will get a wrong information, and because of this might bring you trouble and ruin a relationship. The negative campaigning, fake news, and other modes of disinformation on the web are preventing people from having an honest-to-goodness deliberation of urgent issues that impact everyone. At kakulangan sa open public discussion, it puts more garbage on the internet.
Why does press freedom matter?
Press freedom is the ability to express, to say what you want, to say without fear of reprisal. May ibang nagsasabi na masyado na daw nakaabuso yung ating press freedom, but it is better to be abused than repressed because press freedom is a necessary component of democracy. If the press releases something about you which is not favorable, you are allowed to be mad. You are allowed to trash in your house. But you cannot say, we're going to imprison you or we'll take down your company because it's not fair. We are a free country. It should appear so.
Lastly, what can you say about the people watching this interview?
Sana maging critical tayo sa information. I get that information is easy to access, pero piliin din natin kung saan nanggaling ang information. Not everything you see is true, and especially now na ang dali ng mag-edit and gumawa ng sarili mong post. Isipin natin mabuti kung maniniwala lang tayo basta-basta sa mga nakikita natin.
Kahit na may nakikita tayong balita tungkol sa mga kandidato natin na hindi natin gusto, o parang paninira, dapat isipin din natin na ang ibinalita na iyon dumaan sa paglitis kung totoo o hindi. Huwag natin isisi sa mga nagbabalita, sa journalist at sa istasyon yung mga ibinabalita nila. Tandaan natin na at the end of the day, ang trabaho nila ay maghatid ng balita. At kahit na hindi nakakabango sa pangalan ng kandidato mo ang ibinalitang iyon, it's still a news and people have to see it.
Huwag nating gawing panatiko ang ating sarili sa mga kandidato, opisyal na pamahalaan at mga personalidad. Seeing people as heroes or idols make you see through rose-colored glasses. You ignore their mistakes and you see them as someone who is incapable of doing those mistakes. At the end of the day, tao lang din naman sila. You're allowed to like them but do not put them on the pedestal.